Welcome to another edition of the Total Innovation Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Simon Hill. I'm certain that innovators listening to this show, of which I know there are many, will have found themselves facing countless barriers when attempting to revolutionize markets and change organizations. Our biggest challenge is often to get management buy-in to prioritize innovation, and often prioritize the right innovation as well. And once we're on our way with doing that, to keep that commitment during those complicated, elongated development and scaling phases of these new higher risks innovation initiatives. In this podcast, as always, we're speaking to a luminary. We're speaking to someone who's been there and done it, who's researched it, and has now written the book on this as well. We interview acclaimed author and practitioner Gijs van Wulfen on his newest book. I say newest because he's written several, Breaking Innovation Barriers, empowering you with 15 practical strategies to overcome the main barriers to innovation. I've read it, it's great, it's accessible, and I'm looking forward to digging into it with Gijs today. You'll learn how to win the buy-in of managers and investors, transforming your vision and dreams into that tangible reality that we all really want as innovators. Right? We don't want to work in theory, we want to work in impact and outcome. So welcome a LinkedIn luminary with over 300,000 followers. People seem to love what you have to say, Gijs. It's an honor to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Simon, for the warm welcome. Yes, thank you.
So we caught up beforehand, and we have a fun guest today. Someone who likes to, the subject matter is serious, right? But we have to also, take a little bit of humor and a little bit of humility in the way that we work. But for folks that don't know you, can you just quickly introduce yourself to the listeners?
Simon here is a frustrated innovator. Yeah, that's what I was. Come on. I started in business. I was a business economist. I started as marketeer. And then you come at old companies, food companies who need to innovate. And they only said no to me. It was so frustrating. I couldn't get it at all. And I left after 8 years food industry. Become a consultant. But, a consultant is great until you leave. Then afterward, nothing happens at the client because the project was yours. And then after being, working 15 years, adding no value at all, I thought, come on, I must try to solve this thing, this fuzzy front end of innovation. How can you get those great ideas in and get them realized? And I made I first studied creativity. It's now called design thinking, but in my time, it was pre-YouTube. It was called creativity. I made it merge business thinking and creative thinking, design thinking, and then I started to make methodologies. And after 6 books, I thought, oh, it's done, Simon. I'm ready to retire on Crete with the beautiful white mountains. And then I got to Milano, and the energy got flowing in, and I still see all the innovators struggling with the same thing. Hitting their heads on the barriers of innovation. And those barriers are inside your company. They're not outside. The enemy of innovation is inside. I thought, oh, come on, guys, do another effort and try to write down your learning. So I made kind of 15 strategies to win management buy-in. So what I like is to make you a better innovator and tell about my mistakes, my learnings, in the hope that you will learn faster and then have more impact than I did in my career.
Be a little bit less frustrated, I guess, by the time we get.
Writing about it helps, Simon. Writing about it really helps, so that's good.
So it was another book of therapy. That's good. Why don't we start? Because I've thrown this stat around a lot, but it's a thing, right? Is that people don't really know even what we're meaning when we talk about what is innovation. So there's lots of different interpretations of it. There's some very purists out there that will say it's just this, it's just a specific thing. What's your definition? Let's start.
Yeah, that's a good question. Great to start with that. Now, for me, getting ideas is a creativity. That's not innovation. Developing new tech is invention. That's not innovation. Innovation is transforming ideas or new tech into reality. with impact. So that's what for me innovation is. It's transforming ideas or transforming technology into reality with impact. And what I've noticed is that innovation is so much more than what it was 30, 40 years ago. Innovation was kind of R&D, product innovation. And then we got service innovations in the 90s and the 2000s. And then we got business model innovation. And now, with the ESG so dominant, sustainability so dominant, we also got social innovation, organizational innovation. So I now see it much more broader than 20, 30, 40 years ago. So anything which is new and can create impact is for me innovation.
And I guess in that frustration piece, which we'll dig into in a second, it was that impactful bit that you found so frustrating, right? Like, kind of, how do you get to scaled impact? Because there's lots of inventions, there's lots of ideas, but how do you get them to market?
Well, you know that best. You know everything about stage gates at Wasoku, right? And you know that on average, in a standard stage gate process, out of the 3 ideas we get in, 1 gets out at best, right?
If you're lucky, yeah.
If you're lucky, well, that's a lot of frustration in there. And that's a lot of blocking in there. And that's a lot of, and we say yes, no, but we learn from their failures. We don't. Big companies make the same mistake again and again and again and again. And I try to solve this to make it quicker, to make it more fun. And also in an innovative workplace is a great workplace. It's where there are possibilities and opportunities instead of where there are politics and rules and bureaucratic things.
So let's dig into that. You've been there and done it as a frustrated innovator, and I'm sure in reflection there's things that you would have done differently, maybe with different outcomes, maybe not, right? But
I would for certain.
The voice of experience that we're now going to impart on others through this conversation. But why is it so difficult then? Companies will say, we're investing so much, we're hiring these great people, we're backing them in all the ways that we can, but we're not getting the outputs that we want, whether that's, sufficient conversion rates or ROI or whatever it might be from an innovation perspective. Why is it so difficult?
It's difficult because you can invent alone, you can ideate alone, but in an organization, think of your own organization now. How many people you need transforming an idea into reality? How many? How many departments?
Yep.
From how many countries? How many bosses you need to inform? How many committees you need to inform, right? And that's where the problem is. Because in innovation, you like an idea, but do you really love it? Do you really want to go for it? Is it really yours? Is there really ownership? Are you willing to even put your career at stake for this big thing you want to launch or not? A lot of people think, no, ooh, way too risky, right? So it's the most important thing is getting management buy-in. And I did on LinkedIn, I did a poll in 2023, and that triggered me. Why does innovation stops? Innovation stops because of a lack of feasibility in 8%. Only 8% was feasibility. 52% was a lack of management buy-in. Then you had too slow 15%, and the rest of a lack of business model. But when you add the too slow to the 52% of lack of management buy-in, it's around 70%, right? It's only because we don't dare to, because we don't want to, because we think it's too risky, because we don't believe in it. It are the soft things in innovation which are the hard things.
I like that phrase, the soft things which are the hard things, and maybe we should dig into that, because this is where we start to get into some of the frameworks around the book and other things as well. Let's talk about those main innovation barriers, though. You talk about management buy-in, right? And as one of the primary ones. I guess a lot of managers would sit there thinking, but we do buy in, we do support these things, or we did buy into this thing, and it never turned out in the right way for us in some way, shape, or form. There's a lot of complexity to peel back in that concept of just management buy-in, right? Like, what does that
Yeah,
sentence mean? How does it manifest itself? So maybe we can peel that onion back a little bit in terms of
yes,
innovation barriers.
yes. And before I like to say, this is not complaining against management, because I am, I am the age I could be a CEO like you. So it's not about that. We also look at us, because if you point out at your manager, one finger points out at him or her, and 3 point to yourself, right? I once talked to a CEO and say, hey, I got 3 problems with innovators, right? It's always less than they promised. It's always cost more than they promised. And they always deliver less than they promised, right? And that's what they do. And also, a lot of managers are deeply disappointed in innovation and their innovation efforts. And they are willingness to do so, but somehow the system is too big or too complicated, or it is too politic, or they just can't get it done. So the barriers, first of all, is understand your managers. When you are a researcher and you are the innovation boss, what do you expect? You expect new technology. When you are an engineer and you are the innovation boss, you expect any improvement which works. When you are a venture capitalist guy coming in as an innovation boss, you want growth of the company. When you're originally are a finance guy and are now the innovation boss, you want EBITDA. When you are a commercial guy and you are now in an innovation, the CNO, the Chief Innovation Officer, you want satisfied customers. And when you come from human resources and are now grown up as the VP Innovation, you want internal people to feel empowered to give their ideas. So mind you, do we know what background our bosses have? Do we know what is expected from them? It's like, now you celebrate Christmas, Simon, come on.
Oh, we do.
Oh, we do. Now, do you make a Christmas list?
My children are busy making one right now.
Of course. I want this.
Yeah.
What the innovators do, they bring presents without knowing what's on the list. They don't know what management wants from them. Bring me innovation, bring me something. But the point is, even I, or even in the board, we don't know what we want with innovation.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, that's part of the challenge as well.
So the challenge is, I know I want EBITDA, and I know I want growth, and I know I only got a limited innovation budget of, let's say, 5 million to spend. So we all know the criteria, but even does everybody in your innovation team knows the criteria? Do we know what we need to bring back? So one of the problems is a lack of direction. As top management, you have to give direction and freedom. You have to make an innovation assignment. I want something revolutionary. It can be a product, a service, a business model. I don't mind. But it needs to bring back 100 million revenues in year 3 after introduction with an EBITDA of 40%. I want it to start in EMEA first and then roll it out all over Europe. And the introduction date needs to be in 2027. All right. That's a clear briefing. And then you can give the freedom to the innovation team to provide you with the content which fulfills that. Now, so clear you have to make, but we have to help top management to make that clear.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. Another big thing.
Do you think, sorry for cutting across you, but it's something that we've discussed, or I've discussed with other guests on the podcast, is maybe one of the biggest challenges, and you mentioned this, right? The CNO, the Chief Innovation Officer, and it's actually a role that I have some problems with, right? Because I don't think there's ever going to be a true C-level innovation role, right? True C-level, right? There may be a notional one, but a true one. What I mean by that is that as a consequence of wherever that reports up to, which is always problematic if it exists at all, is that person isn't really the true owner. Because you mentioned earlier, right? There's different types of innovation. There's different outcomes that you're trying to get, which actually horizontally cuts across the innovation problem, right? In terms of thinking. And so maybe the problem that we've got isn't just management buy-in, but that there isn't management ownership even for this, right? And then
this is interesting.
Yeah.
Now, sales is for today, marketing is for tomorrow, and innovation is for the day after tomorrow. Innovation has to do about strategy. Okay, we are now today here. Where do I want to be as CEO in 5 or 10 years? Because that's the horizon we talk about, right? In 5 or 10 years. And what's going to bring me there? More of the same won't bring me there. Otherwise, we would need a strategy, right? Strategy is always about doing different things or doing things in a different way. So it's the innovation function which has to deliver on the strategy. So for me, there is only one chief innovation officer. That is the CEO, and he or she should own, innovation. And of course, and he or she needs to have a staff there. You don't need a chief innovation officer. I think that when you have the CTO on the technical side, the CCO on the commercial side, right, and the COO on the operational side, it is the CEO who can use his or her power to combine those three things, and that's a sweet spot for innovation. Something which is new, technically, which solves a customer friction, which we can make, or together with partners, which we can make. That's what innovation is about. And it's the CEO at top level who can coordinate there and who can facilitate that for me.
Yeah, I'm heavily inclined to agree. And I have this vivid conversation once with a recently stepped down CEO of a very large financial services organization. And I asked them this exact question. I was like, isn't this your remits? And, why weren't you more involved in the conversations? And the answer I got very vividly, he picked up a load of papers that were next to us on the table and put them all in the middle, and then got a small pile. And then the other one is like, this is the pile of stuff I wish I could have done every day, and you're in it. This is the pile of regulatory other stuff, right? Risk management related things that I spent 99% of my time doing. Most of them that weren't planned the day before that kept popping up, right? And it's like a very difficult role.
It is.
Because you don't want to be doing most of the stuff that you're doing at the C-level, and I want to be getting into this stuff. And I think that there's a truism in there that's just very hard to unpick, right? That we live in this kind of bureaucratic...
Well, but let's be a bit harder on this CEO, because come on, the operational shit he should have done by others. Yeah. Why is a CEO in such operational role? I think then you need to look at your operational team. Because for me, the CEO has a management team which rules the business of today.
Yeah.
And that should not be the role of the CEO. He or she would be the one who is busy with it in 5 or in 10 years, because he or she is the only one who is busy in 5 or 10 years with it. And that's what a good CEO should do. So, but of course, especially when you are a publicly noted company, right? There are so many incidents which get onto your table, which take up all the time, which is really a pity. And in that case, I can even understand and I can even sympathize, because I'm also a business economist, Simon. You wouldn't say that with my creative book and my long hair. I'm just a dull economist from inside. And I know if we don't make any money today, we cannot finance innovation for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I am completely in on focusing on today, earning money today, do improvement today, do incremental innovation today, because they will get us the funds to be able to innovate for tomorrow. So you should have your legs on both in today and in tomorrow. But a lot of the time, when like revenues are a bit down, and then EBITDA is double down because margins are down too. Where do we get the money from? Okay, we cut the marketing budget and we cut the innovation budget, and we pump it into the bottom line to save the profits of this year, right? That's what most people do, and I even can understand that. But when you're an innovator, you feel insulted and you see your project being stopped.
Of course, and a lot of people are feeling that right now, right? But do you see that there is we get back to the barriers here a little bit, right, of what's happening, and clearly leadership is a key part of that, right? Management is management, leadership is leadership, and I split those two things out, and I'm constantly reflecting as we're talking around how I do this in my business and what role I take, and
of course,
I try and listen more and speak less. And my team may disagree sometimes, but I actively try. And I find they're actually the most productive, best meetings when I do, right? Like I will I will often type rather than speak because my voice and my words carry different power in those two forums.
When I lectured in India, there was an Indian guy from the audience, and I was talking about the fourth innovation method. And the second step in the fourth innovation method, after full steam ahead, making the direction, is observe and learn. And a guy stood up from the audience. It was in Delhi, in India, around 10 years ago, and he says, Gijs, there is a reason why God gave us one mouth, two eyes, and two ears. If God has wanted us to speak, He would have given us two mouths instead of one.
Exactly.
This pops into my mind while you say this, right? And especially innovation is all about learning. That's what innovation is. It's all about being open. Go out, see things you never saw again. You never saw, hear things you never hear it. And in your own world, you are in a beehive. And the beehive is busy zooming around. But the real world is outside the beehive. And how often do you get there?
No, and not too far outside of the beehive either. I think we're leaning on we're learning more about this, right? And I think that the world of data and AI, if you want to call it that, are starting to open up some of those things. As you know, we're a crowdsourcing business. I believe firmly that many of the answers lie just outside the field of usual view, and that the crowd is best for discovering those, right, from an innovation perspective. So I don't know how much you looked at data. It wasn't front and center in some of your barriers, but it's probably implicit within it somewhere as well.
Well, the interesting part is that 30 years ago, when I was a consultant, before the internet, we did one thing at one client, and we did exactly the same thing at the other client. They just needed us for the knowledge. Mm-hmm. Then Google came, and now AI came. If we want now 10, 15 business cases, we got them within an hour. If you want 250 new concepts, we got them in 2 hours.
Yeah.
So the what, we have been focused on the knowledge on the what. The what is not the problem anymore. But have you ever seen now a management team say yes to a computer? This is the interesting point. Again, the soft things will be even the more harder things in the future.
Yeah.
Consultants, the old style will be gone because we don't need the what. We got our chat TPs, we got our data, we got our integrated data, and you are the expert on that on the innovation side. How to integrate external data with internal data. The data are not a problem. You can generate a lot of concepts from your computer. But the fact is, how do you create ownership? And when do management teams say yes? That depends on how much certainty they need. And I'll come to this in a moment. When you start innovation, how much certainty do you have? At the front end of innovation, you have 0%.
Yeah.
There is no certainty. When you say yes as management team, we are for this big launch, how much certainty you want to have? 100%. So as innovators, we are certainty builders. Is this something the client wants? Wow. Is this something that we can produce? Is this something where there's a business model? And we feed it all with data to build certainty. And when there's trust, they will say yes. So I think that even the soft things, especially in the new age of AI, computers, and it's all there, but do I believe it or not? Mm-hmm. And that's where the human side comes in. So people say, oh guys, it will be the end of innovation consultants and facilitators. No. Because how do we merge then the soft and the hard things? That's where people are still needed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm inclined to agree. Like, I think that my piece on the data piece right now is helping to drive that buy-in, helping to drive the prioritizations, helping to avoid the usual pitfalls that lead to many of the wrong projects being initiated or overfunded for too long, and the right lessons not learned, or the right pivots not taken, and therefore, and maybe moving us on to timing a little bit, that we, either we run out of time because as a team, as a group, as a function, we've invested too much in the wrong projects, or taken too long, even with the right projects, right? Like I'm seeing a lot of very good projects being killed at the moment and divested.
Why is that, Simon? Why?
Well, but and some of it's for the reasons that management have been, businesses are having to make hard choices right now, and there are some really interesting businesses out there. What I find quite strange, and I was having a conversation with Professor Alf Bingham, who was the founder of a business we acquired called Innocentive. It's now Wazoku Crowd, and his vision when he created Innocentive was, which came out of Lilly Labs, Eli Lilly, right, was to create a open science community to disrupt the way that drug development was done, in use crowdsourcing for doing that. And the Lilly Labs loved it and funded it, but didn't want it to be a disruptor to itself or its own market. And therefore, in some ways, and the market didn't like it very much either, because it was such a threat to them as they went forward. But one of the interesting things from that, which was, it is highly effective, right? There is huge amounts of data to suggest that these open approaches to doing innovation are almost unilaterally cheaper, faster, and more effective than the closed approaches for doing it, right? And lots of people have written lots of good research around this as evidence backed. What's interesting about that, though, is that I would say that there's also a normal distribution curve of quality that comes off the back of those, and that even the ones we might think of as the dogs, right? They're not necessarily the unicorns or the future business models, probably still have a significant number of zeros after them in terms of potential value, right? And so the venture bits of these companies, and the opportunities to create value that could go and create value in the world, like venture capitalists do, but businesses understand these problems and these markets better than VCs do, better than bankers do, feels like a missed opportunity, right? And so I think some of it is a poorer understanding of strategy, but these are smart people with smart businesses and smart teams around them. And so part of the answer is, I don't know the answer to your question, why not, right? Other than strategy and fear wags the tail, right?
May I ask you a personal question, Simon?
Sure.
And I honestly don't know this, but do you have any children or any nephews and nieces?
I have two small children. Yes, I do.
2 small children. Yeah. Okay. Now, do you like your children?
Of course, I love my children. Yeah.
You love your children
mostly. Yeah.
most of the time. Well, they're still small. That's now. Do you have in Sweden, where you live, any neighbors with children or neighbors of neighbors with children?
Of course, there's many around.
Oh, many. Oh, good. Do you like the children of the neighbors?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to go out globally, isn't it? So let's, there's a mixed bag out there. Yeah.
Now, and be honest now. Do you love the children of the neighbors?
No, I don't think I would. I don't think I would go that far about it. Exactly.
That's different, huh? Now, the only difference between your child and the child of the neighbors is that your child is yours and the child of the neighbors is not yours.
Of course.
I hope.
That's best we know. Yeah. Correct. No, I understand the point.
And it is the same with ideas.
Yeah.
It's the same with ideas. Of course, rationally, you're completely right. Via open source, open crowdfunding, but it's all the child. It are all the childs of the neighbors. It are not our childs, because, and this is the check question: does your wife or girlfriend or ex-wife, I still hope, but also love your children?
When we came on air, she was my wife. That's how she still is. Yes, of course.
Great.
Yeah,
great.
Exactly.
Yes. That's no coincidence. You made your children together. And what you create, you like, and what you create, you trust. And of course, if there's something wrong with the child of the neighbors, you will start to arrange something. But when there's not something wrong with your child, which I don't hope, you would stop the postcards immediately and go out and save him or her, right? And so the ownership is about creation. And of course, you can make use of, also in the fourth methodology, other methodologies, right, in observe and learn, you source from, but you need to digest it first for you to become yours. And this is so important. It's just a human trait of humans, and especially in doing new things. We have to digest it first, and it has to be not only in our minds from an objective, but also in our souls or in our hearts. And then we will go for it.
I think there's a human identity piece that comes into it as well, and we can start to dig into some of the other thematics. But in one of the previous podcasts, we spoke with Steve Rader at NASA, and they do a lot of work with us in crowdsourcing as well. And we discussed the identity of a rocket scientist and a PhD who's dedicated their life to this was that it's my job to come up with the best ideas. It's my job to do
yes.
this. And actually, the reframing of that, of no, your job is to return astronauts safe to planet Earth, right? And that to get them up into space and get them back down again safely. And that in that reframing, the ability to turn every rock and make sure that you've considered every idea and that you understand everything and that that's not all on your shoulders led to this real embracing of open innovation and open talent and innovation as a collaborative capability, not the purvey of geniuses exclusively, right?
Yes,
that's an important piece. So
it's all about a culture thing, right? And now we come to, it's all about building a culture which embraces innovation. And, in my book, Breaking Innovation Barriers, I call it, we-novation. And not I-novation. And we-novation started doing it together internally. And when you embrace that, then you can also, do we-novation, including crowdfunding there, Simon, and crowdsourcing of ideas and new technologies. But you have to lose the I. And it's easier when you're older like me. I'm an old dog. Come on, I've done it all, well, not all, but seen it all. I'm in the fall of my career, so I'm much more open than I was, in the spring where I always be there and I want to be seen and it has to be my work. And so to make this culture change also in an organization, I think that is crucial.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're not an old dog, but even so, you're teaching new tricks, right? Which is good. I struggle a little bit with this culture concept, and
Why?
Some people put it at the front of the most important bit. Some people put it in the middle. Some people put it at the back. Why? Because I think it's important. I also think it's in some ways a little bit overhyped. There are cultures that produce great innovation that probably wouldn't be standouts as the things to mirror and replicate, and maybe that's the point, right? I think that there are some that we hold up as cultures that were very individual led by strong personalities, and that the culture isn't necessarily the culture therefore everyone else in the business would choose, right? And so I have some difficulties with it. I don't debate its importance in context, but I have some challenges with it. Right, just honest.
Well, it's really nice when you look at the Hofstede Cultural Index, and when you compare that with the Global Innovation Index, and one of the countries I come most, where I come every year, is Japan. The Tokyo Yokohama region, mind you, that's 40 million people there, is the number one technology hotspot in the world. The number one. And Japan is number 13 in Innovation Index. Isn't that strange?
Yeah.
They are behind Korea, behind Taiwan, behind Singapore, and behind China. Why? Because there's this difference between technology and between an innovation. Because there is a thing called market, there is a thing called design thinking, there's a thing called empathy, and there's a thing called risk and risk aversion. And, the Japanese, they are the Germans of Europe, right? Germany, exactly the same, for different reasons. But when you give a German and a Japanese, I'm sorry, all the Japanese and the Germans, but this is an exaggerating Dutchman here, give an empty piece of paper, say, draw something, they don't draw something. But when we give them something, here's a mouse, make a better one, they will give the best improvements, right? So they are They are not really the out of the box thinkers, and the empathy part, and that's cultural, right? Is just in those countries, way and way and way and way and way less well developed than in other parts of the world.
Yeah, I understand it in that quite sort of binary level of culture. I think most of the world exists in a slightly more opaque. If this was a technology readiness level assessment of a culture, like most of us, or a normal distribution, we're kind of in here.
Good. Yeah.
And so that's why I struggle a bit with it, because I don't think there's like lots of rotten cultures out there or anything.
No.
Struggle to know what to do with it, right? That's part of my reasoning, and therefore it feels like another one of these hard to access, intangible innovation things. That's like, yeah, it's important, but what do I do with that? Right? How do I change that? What does that look like? And I guess it's a part of the recipe of everything else, right? Which is equally, just candidly, why I totally recognize it as important and totally struggle with it from a business perspective.
On the other hand, another simplification is I've been traveling the world the last 10 years, My methodology, LinkedIn took my methodology, spread it all over the world, and I was off. And, I did the same methodology, and they use it everywhere. And the colder it gets, they say, oh, what I really like of this methodology, it brings us creativity. And the warmer it gets, they say, oh, what I really like this methodology is bringing me structure.
Yeah.
Because isn't that what innovation is, right? It's combining creativity and structure, right? That's what it bridges.
Yeah.
And so in the north, in Finland and in Sweden where you live, oh, come on, it brought creativity. But I'm living now in Italy and in Greece and in Spain. They say, oh, we got all those things flying around, and you just give a structure on how to transform it into reality. So I think those are really differences which are important to see, especially when you're working with worldwide companies. That there's a huge difference in culture, and the culture and a huge difference within an organization of a corporate culture. But it's so difficult to change a corporate culture, to be quite honest. You just have to deal with it.
No, exactly, and I think that's kind of part of my point. So I'm going to move us on slightly. And I was in a meeting actually earlier today talking about this. Like, Wazoku has been in heavy innovation mode ourselves, right? Building lots of new capabilities to the market, and quite quickly, right? A lot of pace. And we were talking about this concept of proving customer commitment. There's lots of nice feedback, right? There's lots of stuff coming our direction, but picking the right signals out of that and really understanding it. So let's get into that topic of, how can you understand and prove customer commitments to what you're innovating, what you're building?
Well, it's, so I love to prototype instead of prototype, right? So I think that co-creation with customers is essential as early in the front end as possible. And you should test everything live. When it works, you continue. When it doesn't work, you stop it immediately. So that's what especially in business to business, also where you are, right? Only do experiments with clients, only. As soon as you got something, and you can do, of course, first a prototype to see if they would love it. And when they would love it, say, okay, would you like to make a kind of a beta version, and then, make immediately a better version with a client. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think, again, for not wanting to continually play my own violin here, I think crowdsourcing does a great job of this as well, because it gives you perspectives from various angles around the world, right? One of the challenges I've seen sometimes with customers is they come very much from their lens at that particular point in time, and it can be
but you have to prove,
difficult.
Simon, because I'm going to stop you here on crowdsourcing, right? Because sure, Simon, sure, but does it work for me?
Exactly.
But my company is so special, and we have such a special culture, and our customers are so special. Everybody thinks he's really special, and as long as that belief is there, you can say, I bring the knowledge of the whole world, and I will say, but we are different.
Yeah, no, and look, I appreciate that and hear it every day as well, and and that's that's partly why we continue the good fight of what we're doing, right? And it isn't just it isn't purely just for building a great business. Obviously, that's the backbone of where I put my energy, but because I fundamentally know that this is a better way of driving the outcomes that we're that we're talking about. But co-creation doesn't come naturally. Again, it's like you talk about
No, sure.
creativity and design thinking, and maybe with people are saying we're beyond design thinking now into something else as well. Like in reality, all of the messages of those very good structures, ways of working, frameworks, whatever you want to call them, they're still not hugely integrated. Now, there are certain skill sets and certain people in businesses will be shaking their heads saying, "You're all wrong, Simon." I'm like, but not generally in the way that things are done on a day-to-day basis inside organizations. Right? We're just not good at it. Right? That customer co-creation in a truly deep and meaningful way. And it doesn't have to be expensive or complicated, actually. It can be pretty cheap and efficient, just isn't well done. And it's not well understood. And the signals are not well received.
Well, now here you say something, because it's not well understood.
Yeah.
And that's where the main problem is. It's not well understood. So what I learned, and of course you are the technical guy, you're the front runner, and you're doing a great job. But I also learned that you only need to walk one step before your customer. Otherwise, you lose him already. And you're 10 steps ahead or 100 steps ahead. But you have to take him hand by hand. And also, the point is that you have to create internally your innovation ambassadors, and you have to create your own innovation ambassadors who understand the value of it. Because if you don't do it, there are wonderful tools and nobody uses them, like most of them, right? And you can blame the customer. You don't understand it, but who is not understanding who here, right? You just did not find your own. You did not find the way to present it to clients that they adopted right now. And you can blame the clients, but again, three fingers.
I completely agree. I'm not blaming the clients either, to be clear. There's a scene in Ocean's 11, right, where they're robbing the casino and they pull the double bluff, and all the police and authorities believe they're following the van full of the money, and they pull it up at the airstrip and open the doors, expecting to find all the money in there and find all of the flyers from the casino all cut up, right? And it's whatever. And there's this belief, this full on being high on hopium concept that everything you're doing is chasing the money, and in reality it's just a van full of flyers, whatever. And I think that's still unfortunately too common, right? I think that happens very early in the process, right? Sometimes even before the project is fully initiated, that we're so high on that this is the right initiative, this is the right thing to do, that we're not really listening and following the signals. And that's part of what I think comes out in your book and your research and in your other processes as well, and very much something that I'm trying to help correct from a data angle and a crowdsourcing angle as well. Let's drill into this. How, like, there's two questions here in one that I'm going to throw at you, partly to keep us on time a little bit. But how does someone therefore become a great innovator? Like, what does that really mean? And combining that, I'm going to say that being a great innovator is about building a better tomorrow and creating that positive impact, right? So let's kind of bring those things together. I describe this as the best job that anyone could have, working in innovation, but it must be, you don't want to be that frustrated innovator that's lying there at the end, looking at your grandchildren and explaining this amazing opportunity that you had, but it was never quite as good as it could be, right? So how do we get more proud in this evolving vocation, this evolving profession?
Well, for me, the moment that makes a difference was the following. And I got the insight after I left is, but first I'm going to say another thing. The other thing is this: who determines the speed of the organization? You get some innovators in, they start running, to make the company faster, more agile, but who is determining the speed of the herd of the organization? It are the slowest animals.
Yeah.
As innovator, I walked on the front and I look back, I say, "Hey, you stupids. Come on, what take you so long? Come on." You think they listen? Of course not. The moment which changed was that I changed my thinking completely, 100%. I was frustrated because I assumed innovation was the normal thing. The moment you really accept that conservatism is the normal, the whole organization has an immune system protecting the daily business. And as innovator, you attack the immune system. And the moment you want to change one little thing, all the white blood vessels come. That's the normal thing. The moment that I accepted that conservatism was the standard, I went to the back. I start to talk to the most conservative people. I start to understand them. When I couldn't understand them, I could connect to them. And when I could connect to them, I could lead them in that order. And then they followed me. And then I let the last part of the herd walk faster and the whole organization moved. So I think this is very important that we as innovators should accept the conservatism of this big, giant organization.
Yeah.
And we have to do it step by step. And you must not do innovation projects with innovators only. Well, you know the Muppet Show.
Of course.
Waldorf and Statler. You should take them in the team. Out of the 10, take Waldorf and Statler with you. Yes, your project goes slower, but in the end, it moves. You're moving a much more longer way because once they buy in Waldorf and Statler, wow, the whole company moves, right? So, and this is how you should, on the soft side, get everybody in. So the point is that first accept that your organization is as conservative as it is. Now, for me, there are 3 things which are, I described 10 things to be a great innovator, and you heard already a lot of them, but what I recently, of course, persistency is, of course, what everybody says, but it really, really, really is important. Innovation doesn't stop at the first no. That's the moment it starts.
Correct. Yeah.
It starts. You will get 100 no's. So the moment is, the first no. Yes. Now we start. The sooner you get the first no, the sooner you can really start. Because then you get into the real transformation process, right? So first of all, and then you need to be persistent. Now, what I notice is that people love stories. Of course, you can come with the data, you can come up with 100 experts from all over the world, but a good story, like you told yourself, Simon, a good story convinces. So be a good storyteller. A good story is about emotions and it's about real people. And that convinces us because we remember that. And the third thing is, guys, I need to change. I want to become a great innovator. I said, don't change because you must stay authentic. You must stay yourself. Because people will follow people who they believe and they trust. So an introvert R&D guy can still be the perfect innovator to lead the team even, as long as he or she is authentic. And then you get the credibility from the rest and the respect of the rest. So you don't have to change yourself for that. Be authentic, be a good storyteller, be persistent. Those are 3 things I just want to highlight now.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to start to wind us up, but I know there's a lot more in the book, and there's a lot more in your frameworks and others that sit behind all of this than we can cover in a very good conversation, but still a short conversation, right? So I echo these points. I think there's one in there that says align innovation to strategy that's just front and center from my perspective as well. And too often that isn't the case, often because strategy is not very well understood. It may well be well defined in a piece of paper, but not very well understood by the business as well. And I think partly that's because there are too many different chefs in the process that are doing their bit of it, but no one quite understands how they all fall together with this strategy at the top of it that's often owned by a different person, right? And not so understood. So I'm going to I'm going to start to wind us in a little bit. I'm going to thank you for the insights that you have shared today. I think we could probably do a podcast on each of the different areas, and we should definitely produce a bit more content. I've genuinely enjoyed this discussion. I appreciate the fact that you've asked me some questions, and that this draws on years of experience. I'm not dating you. You've dated yourself a few times in this call, but I think you neatly synthesize both the challenge and the opportunity that confronts innovators of all ilks, right? I'm very much a believer that whilst we have to define innovation, I think you do take quite a broad definition of it. The journey for an innovator is to get back into the core in some way, shape, or form. And so you have to, whether it's the folk that you referenced, that you need to bring in, or whatever. Like for me, you can't turn up with a British plug and a European plug socket and expect them to work either, right? And that's not necessarily an innovation challenge. That's the final bit that you turn up with from an organizational perspective, and they just don't fit. And suddenly it's useless, right? I did that coming to feed them with all my lights. Apparently light fittings, not the plug sockets, the things in the ceilings are different here. And so it perplexed me for quite a long time, actually, which frustrated me as to the hell do I do with these things? They plug them in the ceilings here. I'm like, but it's a different thing. But it wasn't an innovation challenge per se, but it was a different culture. Back to that point of like, this is where culture becomes a thing, right?
Yeah.
That got in the way of me having light for a little while, which was fine over the summer and less fine as winter came here. But thank you, right? I've really enjoyed this conversation. As I said earlier, your new book is out now. As this goes out, we'll share a link to it. We have some signed copies that we're working on together that we will share with listeners how they might be able to access one or two of those. And thank you for being authentic, for sharing. For everyone else listening, as always, thank you for listening to the Total Innovation Podcast. If you're a regular subscriber, thank you very much. We have many now around the world, and we just hit a big milestone for downloads of the show as our global readership continues to grow. Thanks to great presentations and talks like this as well, Gijs. So thank you very much. If you haven't checked out our prior episodes, please do so. There's great discussions from the likes of NASA to Exxon, from unicorn building to AI ethics, and much more. So check out the back catalogue and keep an eye out for the next exciting episode coming soon. For today, Gijs, thank you very much.